The night Seoul's underworld went silent wasn't because of gunfire. It was because a black woman in red heels walked into the Dragon's Eye nightclub and said the wrong name out loud. Kim Woo-hyun. The music didn't stop. People did. Every woman in that club knew one rule. You don't ask for the boss. You wait to be chosen. Jasmine Adams didn't wait. "I'm here to see him," she said, calm, bored even. "Tell him I want his heavy thing tonight." The bouncer froze, not because of her words, because she wasn't joking. "Miss," he said low, "you should leave, now." Jasmine leaned closer. "If I leave, your boss loses $15 million, and the one person who knows who's about to betray him." That did it. From the VIP shadows, a voice cut through the noise. Quiet, cold, final. "Let her in." Jasmine felt it then, not fear, attention. Every step forward was a countdown. Women didn't walk toward Kim Woo-hyun. They disappeared. And the most dangerous part? She wasn't walking in to beg. She was walking in to negotiate. She thought she controlled the deal. She didn't know Kim Woo-hyun was already planning how to use her. Before the story continues, let me say this: if any of these stories comfort you, entertain you, or make you feel understood, subscribe and comment, because stories like this survive only when someone chooses to stay instead of silently walking away. Now, let's continue. The VIP section smelled like expensive whiskey and cheaper fear. Jasmine counted 12 men before she stopped counting. Each one looked capable of murder, and at least 3 looked enthusiastic about it. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across black leather couches and glass tables covered in documents she couldn't read from this distance. But she could read the man sitting in the center of it all. Kim Woo-hyun wasn't what she expected. The rumors painted him as a monster, 7 feet tall, scarred face, eyes like death. Reality was worse. He was beautiful in the way a loaded gun was beautiful. Sleek, precise, designed for one purpose. Maybe 6'1", lean muscle under a black Armani suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent back in Chicago. Sharp jawline. Dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble by someone who understood both art and violence. His eyes, though, those were exactly what the rumors promised. Black as oil spills, empty as abandoned churches, watching her like a predator watches prey, not with hunger, but with mathematical certainty about how the hunt would end. "Sit." He didn't gesture, didn't move, just spoke, and somehow Jasmine's body wanted to obey before her brain caught up. She sat across from him, crossing her legs slowly, deliberately. 12 guns probably pointed at her from the shadows, but she kept her hands visible on her thighs, relaxed. Submissive postures got you killed in rooms like this. Aggressive postures got you killed faster. The trick was looking like you belonged in the violence. "You have a name?" Kim said. Not a question. "Jasmine Adams. I worked for Dante Rossi for 3 years. Financial analysis, offshore transfers, shell corporation structuring." She spoke clearly, no fear trembling her voice. "I know where he keeps the $15 million he stole from your Seoul operation. I know the account numbers, the passwords, the security questions. I know which judge he paid off, which cops are on his payroll, and which of your own men sold you out." Silence. The kind of silence that happened before someone got shot in the back of the head. Kim's expression didn't change. Why would Rossi's analyst betray him? Because 3 days ago, I walked into his office and found him raping his 16-year-old housekeeper. Jasmine's voice went flat, stripped of everything except truth. "I reported it to HR. They laughed. I went to his wife. She called me a lying whore. I went to the police. Rossi owns the police. So I decided if the system won't punish him, maybe his enemies will." Something flickered in Kim's empty eyes. Not sympathy. Men like him had forgotten sympathy existed, but recognition, like he'd just solved an equation. You could have run. taken the money yourself, disappeared to somewhere I'd never find you. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. Why come here? Why offer it to me? Because running means he wins. Running means he gets away with it again and again and again. Jasmine held his gaze, refused to look away even though her instinct screamed to. I did my research on you, Kim Woo-hyun. People say you're a monster. They say you've killed more people than cancer. They say you're the devil's soul forgot to bury. But they also say you have rules. No kids, no sexual violence, no mercy for men who break those rules. You believe in rules? Kim's voice carried something that might have been amusement in a human. In him, it sounded like warning sirens. I believe in consequences. Jasmine's jaw tightened. I want Dante Rossi to face consequences. You want your money back and revenge on the man who stole from you. Seems like our interests align. Kim studied her for exactly 11 seconds. Jasmine counted them like heartbeats. When he finally spoke, his voice had shifted, still dangerous, but different, like a blade changing angles. You walk into the dragon's eye. You ask for me by name. You threaten my rival publicly. You reference my heavy thing in a way that makes my men think you're propositioning me. He tilted his head slightly. Either you're the bravest woman in Seoul or the stupidest. Which is it, Jasmine Adams? Neither. She uncrossed her legs, leaned forward to match his posture. Equal. Not submissive, not aggressive. Equal. I'm a woman with nothing left to lose and information you can't afford to ignore. The heavy thing I want? It's your reputation, your reach, your ability to make men like Rossi disappear. That's the heavy thing I need tonight. Your power, pointed at someone who deserves it. For the first time since she'd entered the room, Kim Woo-hyun smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a shark recognizing another predator. You have interesting phrasing. He stood up, and Jasmine realized he moved like water, fluid, inevitable, beautiful right up until it drowned you. Most people who walk through that door leave in body bags, but you walked in talking about my heavy thing like we're already partners, like you have any right to my power. I have information that's worth more than my life. That gives me rights. Jasmine stood too, matching his height as best she could in heels. Question is, are you smart enough to use what I'm offering? The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. Every guard's hand moved toward hidden weapons. Kim's smile disappeared like it had never existed. Nobody questions my intelligence and lives. Then I guess we'll find out if I'm the exception. Jasmine's heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice stayed steady. You want Rossi's account numbers now or after you waste time threatening me? Kim stared at her, and stared, and stared. Then he laughed. It wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the laugh of someone who just realized the game was more interesting than he'd thought. He gestured to his second in command, a man with a scar running from temple to jaw. Takeshi. Clear the room. Ms. Adams and I need privacy. 12 men filed out without question, without hesitation. In 30 seconds, Jasmine and Kim were alone in the VIP section. Nothing between them except expensive air and cheaper lives. You have 10 minutes to convince me you're worth keeping alive. Kim sat back down, crossed one ankle over his knee. Casual. Comfortable. Start talking. Jasmine pulled a folded piece of paper from inside her jacket, slowly, carefully, aware that sudden movements meant bullets. She placed it on the glass table between them. These are the account numbers. The 15 million is split across 5 shell corporations, each one owned by a holding company registered in the Cayman Islands. The primary account is held under the name Redwood Ventures. That's where 10 million sits. The other 5 is spread across backups in case someone freezes the main account. Kim didn't touch the paper. Passwords. I'll tell you those when we negotiate my payment. His eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch. You think you're in a position to negotiate? I think you're smart enough to know that killing me means spending months tracking down information I can give you in 10 minutes. I think you're pragmatic enough to pay a fair price for efficiency. Jasmine sat back down, crossed her legs again. I don't want money. I want Dante Rossi destroyed, completely, publicly. I want his empire burned, his reputation shattered, his life ruined. Do that, and every password, every security detail, every piece of leverage I have on him is yours. Kim was quiet for exactly 17 seconds this time. You're asking me to go to war with the Rossi family. I'm asking you to take what's already yours and punish the man who stole it. Whether that's war or just Tuesday for you, I don't care. Jasmine's voice hardened. What I care about is making sure Dante Rossi learns that some people fight back, even if it means aligning yourself with a monster. Better a monster with rules than a rapist with lawyers. Kim's expression shifted again. Something almost like respect crossed his features before disappearing behind his usual mask of calculated emptiness. He stood up, walked to a cabinet built into the wall, and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Offered one to Jasmine. She took it, didn't drink immediately, tested for poison, wasn't paranoia when you were sitting across from a Mafia boss. But Kim drank from his own glass first, so she followed suit. Expensive, smooth, probably illegal. I accept your terms, Kim said simply. Rossi will be destroyed within a month. In exchange, you give me everything you have on him, work with my financial team to recover the money and testify, if needed, about what you witnessed. Deal. Jasmine didn't hesitate. But there's one condition. Kim's eyes locked onto hers. You work for me now, directly. No going back to your old life, no running away once Rossi is handled. You wanted my heavy thing, you got it. But that means you're in my world now. My protection, my rules, my risks. Jasmine's breath caught. She hadn't expected that. Working for Kim Woo-Yun meant becoming part of something she'd spent her whole life avoiding. Real criminality, real violence, real consequences beyond white-collar fraud. But it also meant no more Dante Rossis. No more men who hurt people and walked away clean. It meant power, directed the right way. What would the job be? She asked. Once, just once, no repeated questions. Financial strategist. You'd clean my operations, make them harder to trace, set up better defenses against people like Rossi. You'd be valuable, protected, paid extremely well. Kim tilted his head. You'd also be complicit in everything I do. The blood doesn't wash off, Jasmine Adams. Once you're in my world, you stay in my world. She thought about the housekeeper, about the police who wouldn't listen, about every system that failed when you needed it most, about the fact that sometimes the only justice came from people willing to break laws that protected the wrong people. I'm in, Jasmine said. Let's burn Dante Rossi's world down. Kim smiled that shark smile again. Welcome to the Dragon's Eye, Miss Adams. Try not to die in the first week. He extended his hand. She shook it. His grip was firm, warm, and absolutely lethal. The moment their palms touched, Jasmine felt it. The shift from stranger to ally, from outsider to insider, from victim to weapon. One more thing, Kim said as he released her hand. Why did you really say you wanted my heavy thing tonight? You knew what it sounded like. You wanted my guards to report it, to make me curious, to guarantee I'd see you instead of having you killed at the door. So why phrase it that way? Jasmine smiled for the first time since entering the Dragon's Eye. Because a woman walking in asking for a business meeting gets ignored, but a woman walking in talking about your heavy thing becomes memorable. Memorable means alive long enough to talk. Sometimes survival is just better marketing. Kim stared at her. Then he laughed again, real this time, genuine surprise cracking through his carefully constructed mask. You're going to be either my greatest asset or my biggest headache. Why not both? Jasmine stood up, downed the rest of her whiskey like she owned the place. When do we start? Now. Kim pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. My financial team is being assembled. You'll meet them in 1 hour, brief them on Rossi's operations, and begin recovery protocols immediately. Takashi will take you to a secure apartment. You'll live there until Rossi is neutralized. No contact with your old life, no exceptions. Understood. And Jasmine, Kim's voice dropped to something quiet, almost gentle. Almost. Thank you for trusting me with this. What Rossi did to that girl, men like that don't deserve to breathe. You made the right choice coming here. Something warm flickered in Jasmine's chest. Not attraction, not yet, but recognition. Kim Woo-yeon was a monster, but he was a monster who protected the things that mattered. In a world full of respectable predators, sometimes you needed an honest one. Let's make him pay, she said simply. Already started. Kim showed her his phone screen. On it, a photo of Dante Rossi leaving a restaurant, time-stamped from 30 minutes ago. I have people watching him. He doesn't know he's already dead. Jasmine looked at the photo, at the man who'd laughed when she reported him, and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no mercy, just cold satisfaction. Good, she said. Let him feel safe a little longer. The fall is better when they don't see it coming. Kim's smile widened. We're going to work very well together, Jasmine Adams. As Takeshi returned to escort her to the apartment, as she left the Dragon's Eye walking beside men who could kill her without thinking, Jasmine realized something fundamental had shifted. She'd walked into this club as a victim looking for revenge. She was walking out as a weapon someone just aimed at their enemy. And it felt absolutely right. The apartment Kim provided wasn't an apartment. It was a fortress wrapped in luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, marble countertops, furniture that cost more than cars, and security systems that could probably launch missiles. Jasmine stood in the living room at 2 in the morning, still wearing her leather jacket, processing the fact that her life had fundamentally changed in less than 3 hours. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Sleep. Tomorrow we hunt. K. She should have been terrified. Should have been questioning every choice that led her here. Should have been planning an escape route. Instead, she felt energized, alive. Purpose had returned to her life like oxygen to drowning lungs. Jasmine slept 4 hours, more than she'd managed in the 3 days since witnessing Rossi's crime. When she woke, designer clothes had been laid out on her bed. Black slacks, silk blouse, leather boots that fit perfectly. Someone had studied her measurements while she slept. That should have been creepy. Instead, it was efficient. She dressed, found coffee already brewed in the kitchen, exactly how she took it, cream, no sugar, and realized Kim's operation wasn't just powerful, it was precise. At exactly 8 a.m., Takeshi arrived. No knocking. He had a key. Of course he did. Boss wants you downtown. Financial team is ready. His scarred face revealed nothing, but his eyes assessed her like a weapon being evaluated for combat readiness. Let's go. Jasmine grabbed the leather messenger bag someone had left on her counter. Inside, she found a new laptop, encrypted phone, and a Glock 19. She held up the gun. I don't know how to use this. You will. Takeshi's voice was gravel and broken glass. Boss says you're smart. Smart people learn quick or die quick. Your choice. They drove through Seoul in an armored SUV that looked civilian but moved like a tank. Jasmine watched the city pass, morning commuters, street vendors, businessmen in suits who had no idea that right next to them, a curvy black woman from Chicago was about to help destroy an international criminal empire. The financial building was legitimate, a real company, real employees, real business. Kim's operation was buried 3 floors underground, accessible only through a private elevator that required fingerprint and retinal scans. The room they entered looked like something from a spy movie. Massive screens displaying financial data, 6 people working computers in focused silence, armed guards at every entrance. Kim stood at the center of it all, orchestrating chaos like a conductor led an orchestra. Jasmine. He didn't look up from the screen he was studying. Dante Rossi keeps his primary assets in 3 separate networks. Walk us through them. No pleasantries, no small talk, straight to business. Jasmine liked that. She stepped up to the main screen, pulled up the files she'd memorized, and began. Rossi structures his money using a triple-layer system. First layer is legitimate. Real estate holdings, import businesses, tech investments. That's what he shows the government. Second layer is semi-legitimate. Gambling, loan sharking, protection rackets disguised as security services. That's what he shows his partners. Third layer is pure criminal. Weapons trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, and your stolen $15 million. One of the analysts, a woman with purple hair and sharp eyes, whistled low. How'd you get access to Layer 3? I didn't just analyze his finances. I built his security architecture. Jasmine pulled up another file. Rossi trusted me because I'm a black woman. He assumed I was too grateful for the job to betray him. Typical racist mistake. I had administrative access to everything. Kim finally looked at her, and Jasmine saw something new in his expression. Respect. Real respect. Not the calculating kind. Show us the $15 million, he said quietly. Jasmine's fingers flew across the keyboard. Account numbers appeared, transaction histories, wire transfer records. $10 million here in Redwood Ventures, $5 million split across these 4 backups. Primary passwords are combinations of his daughter's birth date and his mother's maiden name. Security questions are all variations of his favorite football team. Secondary authentication requires his fingerprint or facial recognition, Kim finished, which means we need him alive long enough to access the accounts. Or we need someone who can forge biometrics. Jasmine glanced at the purple-haired analyst. You look like someone who can forge biometrics. The woman grinned. Yuna, and yeah, I can forge God's fingerprints if you give me 48 hours and a clean sample. Rossi touches everything in his office with bare hands. Arrogant, sloppy. Jasmine pulled up building schematics. I can get you into his private office tonight. Security rotates at 11 p.m. Cameras have a 2-minute blind spot during system backup, and I still have my access key card. We get his prints, we get the money, and Kim gets his revenge. The room fell silent. Every person there understood what she'd just proposed. A direct infiltration of Dante Rossi's headquarters, stealing biometric data from a man who killed people for looking at him wrong. Too risky, Takeshi said from the corner. Rossi will know someone broke in. He'll increase security, move the money, possibly hurt the girl. Jasmine's jaw tightened. The girl is already hurt. But you're right. If we tip him off, he'll adapt. So we don't make it look like a break-in. We make it look like I came back. Kim's eyes narrowed. Explain. I call Rossi, tell him I panicked after reporting him, that I realized I made a mistake, that I want my job back. He's arrogant enough to believe it. I meet him in his office to apologize, get his fingerprints on a glass or tablet, and Yuna gets what she needs from the samples I bring out. Jasmine's voice hardened. He gets to feel powerful for one more night. Then we take everything. He'll hurt you, Kim said flatly. Men like Rossi don't forgive betrayal. He'll want to punish you. Let him try. Jasmine's eyes met Kim's, and something electric passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but understanding. Two people who knew what it meant to survive in a world designed to destroy them. I can handle one night of Dante Rossi if it means finishing this. No, Kim's voice cut like a blade. You're too valuable to risk. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Every day we wait, he moves money, hurts more people, gets stronger. This is the play. Jasmine stepped closer to Kim, unafraid of the power radiating off him like heat from a furnace. You said I work for you now. Let me work. They stared at each other. The room watched, fascinated. Nobody challenged Kim Woo-hyun and lived, but somehow this curvy woman from Chicago was doing exactly that. You'll be wired, Kim said finally. Takeshi and 3 guards will be in the building. You feel threatened, you say the code word, and we extract you with prejudice. What's the code word? Heavy thing. Kim's lips twitched into something almost like a smile. Seems appropriate. Jasmine laughed. real laughter, surprised out of her by the absurdity of it all. Fine, I'll seduce information out of him by talking about your heavy thing again. This is definitely the weirdest week of my life. It's about to get weirder, Una muttered. Boss, if we're doing this, I need to prep surveillance equipment, backup communications, and emergency extraction protocols. 4 hours minimum. You have 2. Kim pulled out his phone. Dante Rossi doesn't get to breathe our air any longer than necessary. Jasmine, make the call. Be convincing. Jasmine pulled out her new encrypted phone, dialed the number she'd called 100 times for work. It rang 3 times before Rossi's assistant picked up. Mr. Rossi's office? It's Jasmine Adams. I need to speak with him, now. She injected fear into her voice, not hard, considering she was about to walk into a monster's office voluntarily. 5 seconds of holding music. Then Rossi's voice, smooth as poison. Jasmine, I heard you had some concerns about your employment. I made a mistake, Mr. Rossi. I misunderstood what I saw. The stress of the job, the long hours. I wasn't thinking clearly. I want to apologize in person and discuss returning to work. Jasmine hated every word, but they sounded genuine, scared, desperate. Rossi was quiet for exactly long enough to make her sweat. Tonight, 9 p.m., my private office. Come alone, Jasmine. We'll discuss your future. The line went dead. Jasmine looked at Kim. I'm in, 9 p.m. Then we have 7 hours to make sure you survive it. Kim gestured to Takeshi. Brief her on self-defense, emergency signals, and where we'll be positioned. Una, prep the equipment. Everyone else, I want full surveillance on Rossi's building, escape routes mapped, and emergency vehicles standing by. The room exploded into organized chaos. Jasmine stood at the center of organized chaos, realizing that Kim Woo-hyun's operation wasn't just criminal, it was military, precise, disciplined, deadly. Jasmine, Kim's voice cut through the noise. Walk with me. They left the financial room, entered a private office that screamed wealth and power. Kim closed the door, and suddenly they were alone. Really alone, for the first time since the Dragon's Eye. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. We can find another way. There is no other way. You know it, I know it. Jasmine leaned against his massive desk. Why does it bother you? You send people into danger all the time. Those people are soldiers, trained, prepared. Kim's mask slipped for just a moment, and Jasmine saw something human underneath. I'm what? A civilian? A woman? Black, so more disposable? Her voice sharpened. I walked into your club last night knowing I might die. I'm walking into Rossi's office tonight knowing the same. The only difference is tonight, I'm not alone. Kim studied her with those endless black eyes. You're not disposable. You're an asset. Assets can be replaced. Not this one. He stepped closer, not threatening, but intense. You walked into my world without fear. You challenged me without hesitation. You understood what I needed before I said it. People like that are rare, Jasmine Adams. Irreplaceable. So yes, it bothers me that you're walking into danger. Not because you're weak, because you're too valuable to lose. Something shifted in the air between them. Not love, too soon, too complicated, but potential. The recognition that two people who'd spent their lives alone might not have to be anymore. Then trust me to come back, Jasmine said softly. Trust that I'm as smart as you think I am. Kim nodded slowly. I do, but trust doesn't mean I won't worry. Good, Jasmine smiled. Means you're human after all. Debatable. But Kim smiled back, genuine, warm, transforming his face from beautiful to devastating. Let's make sure Dante Rossi regrets the day he underestimated you. The next 6 hours were intensive training compressed into panic. Takeshi taught her how to fall, how to block, how to recognize when violence was coming. Una wired her with equipment so small and sophisticated it made James Bond look low-tech. Kim's team mapped every exit, every security camera, every possible threat. By 8:30 p.m., Jasmine stood in front of a mirror wearing designer clothes that hid weapons and wires, looking like a woman going to apologize to her boss. looking like prey, but feeling like a predator. Who do you think has more power in this moment? Jasmine walking into danger or the men underestimating her? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This story is just getting started. Kim appeared behind her reflection. Last chance to back out? Not a chance. Jasmine turned to face him. Let's go hunting. They drove to Rossi's building in silence. Takeshi, 3 guards, and a van full of weapons parked 2 blocks away. Kim stayed in the SUV across the street, watching through cameras Yuna had hacked into hours ago. Remember, Kim's voice came through her earpiece, code word is Heavy Feng. Say it and we come in shooting. I remember. Jasmine checked her reflection one last time in the SUV window. See you on the other side. She walked into the building that had been her workplace for 3 years, past security guards who knew her face, up the elevator to the executive floor, down the hallway to Rossi's office where light spilled from under the door like blood. She knocked twice. Come in, Jasmine. She opened the door and walked into the monster's lair. Dante Rossi sat behind his desk like a king on a throne, 50-something, silver hair, expensive suit, handsome in the way poisonous things often were. His office smelled like cigars and conquest. Trophy photos lined the walls, politicians shaking his hand, celebrities at his parties, properties he owned across 3 continents. And there, in the corner, Jasmine saw it, the couch where it had happened, where he'd hurt that girl, where everything had started. Jasmine, Rossi stood, gestured to a chair. Sit, we have much to discuss. She sat, crossed her legs, looked appropriately nervous, not hard considering her heart hammered like thunder. I'm sorry, Mr. Rossi. I overreacted. The hours, the stress. I wasn't thinking clearly about what I saw. The lies tasted like ash, but she sold them. I want my job back. I'll sign any NDA you want, accept any conditions, please. Rossi circled his desk slowly, predator assessing wounded prey. You accused me of something very serious, Jasmine. You went to my wife, to the police. You tried to destroy my reputation. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Jasmine let tears build in her eyes, easy, thinking about that girl. Please, Mr. Rossi, I need this job. I'll do anything. Anything? He stopped in front of her, too close. That's a dangerous word. I mean it. Jasmine looked up at him, playing the role perfectly. Whatever it takes to make this right. Rossi smiled. It was the smile of a man who thought he'd won. Then prove it. He gestured to a tablet on his desk. Sign this new employment contract. It includes terms that make your previous accusations legally void, binds you to confidentiality, and requires you to work exclusively for me for the next 5 years. Sign it and we'll forget this unfortunate misunderstanding. Jasmine stood, walked to the desk, picked up the tablet. She read it quickly, standard legal intimidation designed to own her completely. She pretended to hesitate, then picked up the stylus. Where do I sign? Right there, Rossi pointed, his finger touching the screen. Fingerprint. Perfect. Jasmine signed with the stylus, making sure the signature required multiple touch points. More fingerprints. She handed the tablet back to Rossi, watching his fingers wrap around it naturally. Good girl, he said. And Jasmine wanted to kill him. Now there's one more thing. Her muscles tensed. What's that? I need to know you won't betray me again. Rossi's voice dropped to something ugly. So you're going to stay late tonight. Help me with some personal matters. Prove your loyalty the old-fashioned way. There it was. The real price. The thing he'd always wanted from her. The reason he'd never quite trusted her intelligence alone. Every instinct screamed to run, to say the code word, to let Kim and his guns end this now. But running meant no fingerprints, no evidence, no victory. Of course, Mr. Rossi. Jasmine smiled like it didn't make her skin crawl. Whatever you need. Excellent. He walked to his bar, poured 2 glasses of wine, handed her one, touched the glass with his fingers wrapped around it. Perfect. 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 To new beginnings, Rossi said, raising his glass. To consequences, Jasmine replied, and drank. The wine was good, expensive, probably drugged. She'd spit it out as soon as he wasn't looking, but for now she played the game. Rossi circled her again, predator enjoying the hunt. You know, Jasmine, I always thought you were too smart for simple financial analysis. Too observant, too questioning. It made me nervous. I just wanted to do good work. No. He stopped behind her, close enough that she felt his breath on her neck. You wanted to find dirt on me. You were always looking, always digging. That's why you found my personal accounts. That's why you saw what happened on that couch. You were never loyal, Jasmine. You were always a spy. Her blood turned to ice. He knew. He'd always known. Mr. Rossi, don't. His hand landed on her shoulder, gripped tight enough to bruise. Don't insult me with lies. You came here tonight thinking you'd gather evidence against me, record our conversation, get my fingerprints on something to access my accounts. You think I'm stupid? Jasmine's mind raced. The wire, the tablet, the entire plan falling apart in real time. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Rossi's other hand grabbed her throat, not strangling, just controlling. But here's what you don't know. I've been planning this for days. Since the moment you walked out of my office, I knew you'd come back, either to apologize or to spy. Either way, I win. He released her, stepped back. Jasmine turned and her stomach dropped. 3 men had entered the office, big, armed, expressionless. Say hello to my real security, Jasmine, the ones who don't appear on any employee roster, the ones who specialize in making problems disappear. This was bad. This was really, really bad. Mr. Rossi, please. Stripper, check for wires. He said it casually, like ordering coffee. The guards moved forward. Jasmine backed up, hands sliding toward the weapon hidden under her jacket. Time for the code word. Time to let Kim's heavy thing rain down on this building. But before she could speak, before she could move, one of the guards grabbed her arm and yanked her forward. The weapon fell from her jacket, clattered on expensive hardwood. Armed too. Impressive. Rossi picked up the gun, studied it. Kim Woo-yeon's standard issue, unless I'm mistaken. So that's who you sold yourself to. The Korean monster. How poetic. They found the wire in 30 seconds, ripped it from her body along with her blouse, found the backup transmitter in her boot, found the emergency beacon Takeshi had sewn into her jacket lining. Everything. They found everything. Rossi held up the wire, smile widening. Did Kim tell you I used to work in intelligence? Did he mention that I know every surveillance trick in the book? Did he explain that walking into my office was suicide? Jasmine's hands shook, not from fear, from rage. You can't get away with this. Kim knows where I am. His people are everywhere. Are they? Rossi walked to his window, gestured to the street below. Because I count 12 of my men surrounding his SUV right now, and another 20 ready to storm his position if he tries to rescue you. So tell me, Jasmine, who's really trapped here? Through the window, Jasmine saw it. Kim's SUV surrounded by armed men. Takeshi's van boxed in. Every escape route cut off. She'd walked into a trap and brought Kim right into it with her. The office felt smaller suddenly, walls closing in like a coffin. Jasmine stood there in her torn clothes, surrounded by Rossi's guards, watching through the window as his men aimed weapons at the vehicle where Kim waited. But something was wrong. Rossi's smile was too confident, his posture too relaxed, like a man who thought he'd won completely. Kim Woo-hyun didn't lose completely. You're thinking he'll save you, Rossi said, reading her face. You're thinking the monster will burst through my walls, kill my men, rescue the girl. Classic fairy tale. But here's what you don't understand about men like Kim. They don't rescue. They calculate. And right now the calculation says you're not worth a war. You don't know him. Jasmine's voice was steady despite everything. I know men who value power over people. I know predators who pretend to have honor codes but abandon them when convenient. I know... The lights went out. Complete darkness. Emergency lighting didn't kick in. Backup generators didn't activate. The entire building plunged into blackness so absolute that Jasmine couldn't see her hand in front of her face. Then, she heard it. Gunfire. Screaming. The sound of bodies hitting the ground. What the... Rossi's voice cut off in a grunt of surprise. Something grabbed Jasmine's arm in the darkness. She started to fight, then heard Takeshi's gravelly voice. Move. Now. She moved. Let him pull her through the blackness, through the office door, into the hallway where emergency lights finally flickered on, red and dim, painting everything in shades of blood and shadow. The hallway was a war zone. Rossi's guards lay unconscious or dead, taken out by Kim's people in under 30 seconds. Takeshi pushed Jasmine toward the emergency stairs, his scarred face grim. Boss is handling Rossi. We're extracting you. I'm not leaving without... Not a request. Takeshi shoved a jacket into her arms, covering her torn clothing. You did your job. Got the prints on the tablet. Yuna already has the data. Now we get you out before this building becomes your grave. They hit the stairwell at a run, down 6 floors, past more unconscious guards, past cameras that had mysteriously stopped working. Kim's operation was military precise, taking out an entire security network in minutes. But Jasmine's mind wasn't on the escape, it was on what Takeshi had said. Boss is handling Rossi. Handling. Not killing. Not capturing. Handling. They burst out of the building into controlled chaos. Rossi's men who'd surrounded Kim's SUV were on the ground, zip-tied and unconscious. More of Kim's people had appeared from nowhere, taking control of the entire block. Police sirens wailed in the distance, but nobody seemed worried, because Kim owned the police too. The SUV door opened. Kim stepped out, and Jasmine's breath caught. He looked exactly the same. Suit perfect, hair in place, expression empty, but his knuckles were bloody. Fresh blood, still dripping. Are you hurt? His eyes scanned her from head to toe, checking for injuries with professional efficiency. I'm fine. The wire... I know. Rossi found it 30 seconds after you walked in. We've been monitoring through building cameras Yuna hacked hours ago. Kim's jaw tightened. I should have pulled you out immediately. Why didn't you? Jasmine demanded. Because you got what we needed. The tablet, his fingerprints, everything. Pulling you early meant wasting the opportunity. Kim's voice was flat, factual. The mission was more important than the risk. Something cold settled in Jasmine's chest. Takeshi had been right. Kim had calculated, weighed her value against the mission's success, and the mission had won. Where's Rossi? Jasmine asked quietly. Alive, restrained, waiting for you. Kim gestured to the building. This is your revenge, Jasmine. You should be the one to take it. They walked back into the building together, surrounded by Kim's soldiers, up the stairs to Rossi's office, where the man who'd hurt so many people sat zip-tied to his expensive chair, blood streaming from his broken nose. Kim had handled him all right. Jasmine, Rossi's voice was thick with pain and fear. Please, I'm sorry. Whatever you want, it's yours. Money, property, anything. I want you to feel consequences. Jasmine stood in front of him, no longer afraid. I want you to understand that some people fight back, that your money and power and lawyers don't protect you from everything. Kim will kill me anyway. Rossi's eyes darted to the Mafia boss. You're just delaying the inevitable. No. Jasmine looked at Kim. We're not killing him. Surprise flickered across Kim's face. Explain. Killing him is too easy, too fast. He doesn't learn anything. Jasmine pulled out her phone, opened the files she'd prepared. We're releasing everything I have on him. Every crime, every bribe, every victim. We're destroying his reputation, his empire, his life. And then we're letting the system he corrupted eat him alive. Rossi's face went white. You can't. They'll kill me in prison. I have too many enemies. I know. Jasmine's smile was cold. Consequences, Dante. They're heavy. Kim studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yuna, release the files. All of them. Every news agency, every police department, every federal investigator who's been looking for dirt on Rossi. Give them everything. Already done, boss. Yuna's voice came through Kim's earpiece, audible in the quiet office. Files went out 30 seconds ago. FBI is already moving on his properties. Interpol just issued an arrest warrant. He's finished. Rossi started screaming, threats, bribes, desperate pleas, but nobody listened. Kim's people escorted him out of his own building in zip ties, past his own guards who couldn't help him, into a police car that had finally arrived. Not Kim's police, real police. Federal agents who'd been waiting years for evidence against Dante Rossi. Jasmine watched him disappear into the night and felt absolutely nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just exhausted relief that it was over. You didn't want me to kill him, Kim said quietly. Why? Because that would make you the villain of this story. And you're not. Jasmine turned to face him. You're a monster with rules, remember? You don't kill people for revenge. You kill them because they break your code. Rossi broke human decency, but he didn't break your specific rules, so we handled him the right way. Kim's expression shifted, something soft entering those endless black eyes. You just gave up vengeance to protect my conscience. Nobody's ever done that before. Maybe nobody else cared about your conscience before. Jasmine stepped closer, aware of every guard watching them, every camera still recording. You said I work for you now. That means I'm invested in keeping you from becoming what people think you are. And what do people think I am? A monster with no humanity left, a killer who can't be reasoned with, a man so far gone that redemption is impossible. She met his gaze without flinching. But I don't think that's true. I think you choose violence because it's efficient, not because you enjoy it. I think you follow rules because you're trying to stay human, and I think having someone remind you of that humanity is worth more than any revenge. The office was silent. Even Takeshi looked surprised. Kim reached out slowly, carefully, and tucked a strand of hair behind Jasmine's ear. The gesture was so gentle, so human, so completely at odds with the blood on his knuckles. You're going to ruin me, Jasmine Adams, he said softly. You're going to make me into something I've spent years avoiding. What's that? Someone who gives a damn. His lips quirked into a small smile. Someone who has something to lose. Good, Jasmine smiled back. Maybe having something to lose will make you more careful, less reckless, more human. Or maybe it'll make me more dangerous. Kim's thumb brushed her cheek. Because now I have something to protect. Would you choose revenge or redemption? Drop a comment with your honest answer. I want to know if you think Jasmine made the right call. The moment stretched, electric and terrifying and full of potential. Then Takeshi cleared his throat. Boss, feds are asking questions. We need to clear out. Reality crashed back. Kim stepped away from Jasmine, the mask sliding back into place. Professional, cold, untouchable. Extract everyone. Leave no evidence we were here. Yuna, scrub the camera footage of our people, but leave Rossi's crimes visible. Make it look like the feds got lucky. Kim's voice was pure command again. Jasmine, you're coming back to the apartment. Tomorrow we begin phase 2, recovering the 15 million. They left Rossi's building as sirens filled the night. Back in the SUV, surrounded by armed guards, Jasmine felt the adrenaline crash hit her like a physical wave. Her hands started shaking. Kim noticed immediately. He didn't speak, just handed her a bottle of water and placed his jacket around her shoulders. The gesture was simple, protective, and somehow more intimate than anything else that had happened tonight. You did well, he said quietly, so only she could hear. Better than most soldiers I've worked with. I almost got us both killed, but you didn't. You kept your head, got the data we needed, and walked out alive. That's a win in my world. Jasmine leaned her head back against the seat, exhaustion pulling at her. Your world is insane. Yes, Kim's hand found hers in the darkness of the SUV, squeezed once. But you're handling it better than most. She squeezed back. Let her hand stay in his, feeling the calluses from weapons, the warmth of someone who was supposed to be cold-blooded. Kim Woo-hyun was a monster, but he was a monster who gave a damn. And maybe that was enough. They drove through Seoul as dawn started breaking. The city woke around them. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, completely unaware that their world ran on violence and power plays they'd never see. Back at the apartment, Jasmine collapsed on the couch, still wearing Kim's jacket. He stood by the window, looking out at the city he controlled. "The 15 million?" Jasmine said eventually. "We can start recovery tomorrow?" "We already started. Yuna is using Rossi's fingerprints from the tablet to access the accounts right now. By morning, the money will be back in my possession." Kim turned to look at her. "You completed your part of the deal. Rossi is destroyed, the money is recovered, and you're still alive. Most people don't survive their first week in my world. So what happens now?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. "That depends on what you want." "What do you mean?" "I said you work for me now, that you're in my world permanently, but I also said I'm not a good man." He walked closer, stood in front of her. "Tonight proved something. You're too valuable to waste on financial analysis, too smart to hide in offices, too brave to spend your life as just an asset. So I'm giving you a choice." Jasmine's pulse quickened. "What choice?" "Option 1, you take a generous severance package, disappear to whatever country you want, and live a quiet life far away from all this. I guarantee your safety, your comfort, and enough money to never work again. You walk away clean." "And option 2? Kim's eyes held hers. "Option 2, you stay. Not as an employee, as a partner. You help me build something better than what I have. You use your intelligence to make my operations smarter, cleaner, more focused on helping people instead of just hurting enemies. You become the conscience I've been missing, and in return, I protect you, value you, and give you power that most people only dream about." "That's not a business proposal." Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. "That's something else." "Yes," Kim didn't look away. "It is. Because somewhere between the Dragon's Eye and tonight, you stopped being an asset and started being essential, important, someone I can't imagine losing. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you walked into my club unafraid. I know you challenged me without hesitation. I know you protected my conscience when you could have chosen revenge. I know you make me want to be better than I am." He knelt in front of her, bringing them to eye level. "I'm a monster, Jasmine, but monsters can evolve with the right person pushing them." Jasmine looked at him, really looked, saw the violence in his hands, the blood on his conscience, the emptiness he'd carried for years. But she also saw the rules he followed, the protection he offered, the humanity he was trying desperately not to lose. "If I stay," she said slowly, "things change. I'm not just your financial strategist or your conscience. I'm your equal partner. Your decisions affect me, my decisions affect you. We build this together or not at all." "Agreed. And I get to say no to any job, any operation, anything that crosses my personal lines. You don't own me. I would never want to own you. Owning something means controlling it. I want you free, choosing to stand beside me because it's what you want." Jasmine studied his face, searching for lies, found none. Just raw honesty from a man who'd spent his life hiding behind masks. "You're going to ruin me too," she said softly. "You're going to make me care about a mafia boss, care about whether he stays human, care about what happens to him. Is that a yes?" Kim's voice held something vulnerable, something she'd never heard before. "It's a conditional yes." Jasmine leaned forward until their faces were inches apart. "I stay, we're partners, and you promise me one thing." "What?" "That you'll keep trying to be human, that you won't let the violence consume you completely, that you'll let me pull you back when you go too far." Her voice hardened. "Because I won't stand beside a monster who stops caring about the difference between justice and cruelty. The moment you cross that line, I'm gone." Kim smiled, genuine, warm, devastating. Deal. I'll stay human if you stay beside me. Then I'm staying. Jasmine closed the distance between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that was part promise, part challenge, part surrender. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't soft, it was fierce and real and full of everything they'd both been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, Kim's mask was completely gone. He looked younger, lighter, like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. "Welcome to the Dragon's Eye, partner," he whispered. "Try not to get us killed in the first month," Jasmine whispered back. They sat there as dawn fully broke, two people who shouldn't work together but somehow did, building something new in the ruins of their separate lives. The heavy thing Jasmine had asked for that first night, Kim's power, his reach, his ability to make things happen, had become something else entirely. It had become partnership, trust, the beginning of something that looked dangerously like love. 3 weeks later, Jasmine stood in Kim's underground headquarters, surrounded by screens displaying financial data from 12 different criminal organizations. She'd cleaned $5 million through legitimate businesses in the past week alone, restructured Kim's operations to be 30% more efficient, and helped take down 2 rival gangs without firing a single shot. She was good at this, terrifyingly good. "The Nakamura family is moving product through the southern ports," Yuna said, highlighting routes on a digital map. "If we intercept here and here, we can cut their distribution by 40%. Do it." Jasmine's voice carried authority now, command that Kim's people had learned to respect. "But make it look like the Yamada clan's operation. Let them fight each other while we consolidate." Takeshi grunted approval from his corner. Smart, bloodless. Boss would like it. Kim himself was in Tokyo, handling business that required his personal touch. He'd been gone for 5 days and Jasmine felt his absence like a missing limb. They video called twice daily, once for business, once for something that looked suspiciously like 2 people missing each other. "You're getting too comfortable with this," Takeshi said after the team dispersed, "giving orders, making strategic decisions, running operations like you were born to it. Is that a problem?" Jasmine looked up from the tablet she'd been studying. "Depends. You came here for revenge against Rossi. Got it. Money's recovered. He's rotting in federal prison awaiting trial. Your original mission is complete." Takeshi's scarred face was unreadable. "So why are you still here? Really?" Jasmine set down the tablet. "Because I found something better than revenge." The boss? Purpose. She stood, walked to the windows overlooking Seoul. "I spent my whole life watching bad people win because good people followed rules that didn't apply to them. Rossi, his friends, every corrupt system that protected them. They operated outside the law while pretending to be respectable. But Kim? He's honest about what he is, and somehow that honesty lets him do more good than all those respectable people ever did." "Good?" Takeshi laughed, rough, bitter. "Boss runs weapons, manages gambling operations, collects debts that break bones. That's not good. He also protects neighborhoods the police ignore, stops human trafficking rings, kills men who hurt children, follows rules that most governments don't." Jasmine turned to Takeshi. "I'm not saying Kim's a hero, but he's not a villain either. He's something in between, and that in-between space is where actual change happens." "You sound like you're trying to convince yourself." "Maybe I am." Jasmine's voice softened. "Every day I'm here, I become more complicit in everything he does. Every operation I plan, every dollar I clean, every decision I make, it pulls me deeper into this world. And the scary part? I don't want to leave. This feels right in a way nothing else ever has. That's called corruption, Jasmine. Happens to everyone who stays in this world too long." Takeshi's voice carried warning. "You start thinking the ends justify the means, that your violence is righteous while everyone else's is evil, that you're different from the people you're fighting. But you're not. You're just another player in the same game. Then why do you stay?" Jasmine challenged. "You've been with Kim for what, 15 years? If this world corrupts everyone, why are you still here?" Takeshi was quiet for a long moment. "Because some of us are already corrupted, already broken, already too far gone to pretend we're good people. But Kim? He's different. He still thinks he can be better, still tries to follow rules, still gives a damn about things most bosses stopped caring about decades ago. As long as he's trying to stay human, I'll help him. The day he stops trying, I'm gone. Same. Hand? Jasmine held out her hand. Deal? We both keep him human? Takeshi looked at her hand like it might bite him. Then slowly he shook it. Deal. But understand something. Keeping Kim human means standing between him and his worst instincts, means telling him no when everyone else says yes, means being willing to walk away if he crosses lines you can't accept. Are you ready for that? I told him the same thing 3 weeks ago. I'm ready. We'll see. Takeshi released her hand. Boss is flying back tonight, late. He'll want to see you immediately, so be ready. Jasmine spent the afternoon reviewing operations, checking in with various teams, and preparing reports on their latest successes. The $15 million they'd recovered from Rossi had been reinvested into legitimate businesses, real estate, tech startups, import companies that actually imported legal goods. Kim's empire was slowly transforming from purely criminal to something more complex, something Jasmine had helped build. At 11 p.m., her encrypted phone buzzed, a message from Kim. Landing in 30 minutes. Meet me at the penthouse. Not the office, the penthouse. The private space he rarely shared with anyone. Jasmine's pulse quickened. She changed into designer clothes that had become her new normal. Sleek black dress, heels that could double as weapons, and a confidence that came from surviving 3 weeks in a world that ate most people alive. The penthouse was in one of Seoul's most exclusive buildings, 60 floors above the city, with views that made the world look small. Kim's personal space was minimalist, expensive furniture, high-end electronics, and absolutely nothing that revealed who he actually was. Like the man himself, the penthouse was beautiful, functional, and completely guarded. Jasmine let herself in with the key card he'd given her, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, waited. Kim arrived exactly on time, because of course he did. He walked through the door looking tired. First time she'd ever seen him look anything less than perfectly controlled. His suit was wrinkled, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled. Tokyo was productive, he said, accepting the whiskey she offered. Nakamura family agreed to our terms. Southern ports are ours without bloodshed. Yuna already implemented the distribution plan. We're routing 40% of their former product through our channels as of tomorrow. Jasmine sipped her own drink. Welcome home. Kim smiled. Rare, genuine. Home. Strange word for what this place is. What is it, if not home? A fortress, a hiding place, a space I control completely because trusting anything else got too expensive. He walked to the windows, looking out at Seoul's glittering lights. I haven't called anywhere home since I was 17. What happened when you were 17? Jasmine joined him at the window. Kim was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my grandmother died. Cancer. Slow. Painful. I watched her waste away in a public hospital because we couldn't afford anything better. The doctors barely tried. Old Korean woman, no family with money, no reason to waste resources. She died alone, in pain, forgotten by a system that decided she wasn't worth saving. Kim, I became what I am that day. Made a choice that if the world valued money and power more than human life, then I'd get money and power, and I'd use them to make sure people like her never got forgotten again. His voice was flat, emotionless, the way he spoke about violence. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started. The power became the point. The violence became routine. I spent 15 years building an empire and losing myself in the process. Until, Jasmine prompted gently, until a curvy black woman walked into my club and asked for my heavy thing. Kim turned to look at her, and his eyes weren't empty anymore. They were full of something raw and real and terrifying. You reminded me what I was supposed to be, not a monster with rules, a person trying to stay human. And for the first time in 15 years, I want to be that person again. Jasmine set down her glass, stepped closer. You are that person, Kim. You never stopped being human. You just forgot how to show it. Because showing humanity in this world gets you killed. Or maybe it gets you saved. She reached up, touched his face. The first time she'd initiated physical contact beyond that one kiss 3 weeks ago. You've spent 15 years believing that caring about people makes you weak, but what if it makes you stronger? What if having something to protect gives you more reason to survive than fear ever did? Kim's hand covered hers, pressing her palm against his cheek. You terrify me, Jasmine Adams. You make me want things I gave up hoping for. Safety, partnership, someone who knows what I am and stays anyway. I terrify myself, Jasmine admitted. 3 weeks ago, I was a financial analyst in Chicago. Now I'm helping run a criminal empire in Seoul, making decisions that affect hundreds of lives, becoming someone I don't entirely recognize. But the terrifying part, I like this version of me. Better. She's stronger, smarter, more herself than I've ever been. That's the corruption Takeshi warned you about. Kim's voice was soft. This world makes you feel powerful because it gives you permission to be ruthless. But ruthless isn't the same as strong.
I know. That's why I need you to keep me honest. The same way I keep you human. Jasmine lowered her hand but didn't step back. We're each other's conscience, Kim. Each other's reminder that the violence we do should mean something. That we're not just another gang hurting people for profit. We're trying to build something better. Are we? Kim's voice carried doubt. Or are we just telling ourselves pretty lies to justify ugly actions? Maybe both. Maybe that's the only way to survive in this world. Jasmine's voice hardened. But I'd rather try to be better while doing necessary violence than pretend I'm good while letting evil people win. Rossi was respectable, legal, protected by systems that called him a pillar of the community, and he was a rapist who hurt children. You're illegal, violent, and feared by everyone, and you protect children from men like him. So tell me, Kim Woo-yeon, who's actually doing good in this world? Kim stared at her. Then he laughed. Real laughter, surprised and genuine. You argue like a lawyer. I argue like someone who's tired of pretending the world is fair. Jasmine smiled. Now stop being philosophical and tell me what you really want. Kim's expression shifted, heat replacing contemplation. What I really want? You brought me to your personal space at midnight, had me wait here alone, trusting me in a place you never share with anyone, looked at me like I'm something precious instead of just another asset. Jasmine stepped even closer, until they were inches apart. So I'm asking directly, what do you want from me, Kim? Everything. His voice dropped to something rough, honest. I want you beside me when I build this empire into something better. I want your intelligence making my operations smarter. I want your conscience keeping me human. I want to wake up knowing someone gives a damn whether I live or die. I want... He stopped, jaw tightening. Say it. I want you to love a monster, and I want to deserve it. Jasmine's breath caught. 3 weeks. They'd known each other 3 weeks. It was too fast, too intense, too complicated to be real, except it felt real, felt right in a way nothing else ever had. Then earn it, she said softly. Be the man your grandmother would have been proud of. Use your power to protect people instead of just hurting enemies. Build something that matters, and maybe, eventually, you'll deserve what you're asking for. And in the meantime, you've got a partner who'll stand beside you while you figure it out. Jasmine closed the final distance between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that was different from their first, less desperate, more certain, a promise instead of a question. Kim pulled her closer, his hands gentle despite their capacity for violence. The kiss deepened, turned into something that tasted like whiskey and danger and the possibility of something neither of them had believed existed in their world. When they finally broke apart, breathless and burning, Kim rested his forehead against hers. Stay tonight. Not because you work for me, not because we're partners, just because I don't want to be alone. Neither do I. Jasmine's voice was equally quiet. But Kim, if we do this, if we become more than partners, things get complicated. Personal feelings affect professional decisions. Enemies use relationships as leverage. Everything gets harder. I know. And I'm still not entirely comfortable with everything you do. Still not sure I can live with some of the choices you'll have to make. Still learning how to be someone who helps run criminal operations without losing myself completely. I know that too. And there's a chance this doesn't work, that we destroy each other instead of saving each other, that 3 weeks wasn't enough time to know if what we feel is real or just adrenaline and proximity. Jasmine. Kim pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea. I've spent the past 3 weeks listing them in my head, trying to convince myself to keep distance, to treat you as just a business partner. But I'm tired of pretending I don't care, tired of being alone in a fortress I built to keep everyone out. If there's even a chance this is real, I want to take it. Jasmine studied his face, the violence in his eyes, the gentleness in his touch, the hope he was trying desperately to hide. Kim Woo-yeon was a monster, but he was a monster trying to be human, and maybe that was worth believing in. Okay, she said simply. Let's see if a monster and a woman who talks to monsters can build something real. They didn't leave the penthouse that night.
Talked until dawn about everything and nothing. Kim's childhood, Jasmine's life in Chicago, the impossible circumstances that had brought them together. Fell asleep tangled together on his couch, fully clothed, exhausted by honesty instead of violence. When Jasmine woke, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Kim was watching her with an expression she'd never seen before. Contentment. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," she stretched. Realized she was using his shoulder as a pillow. "We fell asleep. Best sleep I've had in 15 years. Liar. Truth." Kim's fingers traced patterns on her arm. "Usually I sleep light, always ready for threats, but with you here, I felt safe." A mafia boss feeling safe, that's ironic. That's partnership. He kissed her forehead. "Ready to face the empire we're building?" "Ready." Jasmine sat up, immediately shifting into business mode. "We've got the Nakamura situation to finalize, 3 new businesses to open, and Takeshi wants to discuss expanding into later." Kim pulled her back down. "Right now, I want 5 more minutes of pretending we're normal people who get to be happy." Jasmine laughed. "Normal people don't run criminal empires." Then 5 minutes of being abnormal people who get to be happy. They lay there as Seoul woke around them. 2 people who shouldn't work together building something impossible in the ruins of their separate lives. It wasn't love, not yet. Too soon for that, but it was the foundation love could be built on: trust, respect, partnership, and the terrifying knowledge that they'd both rather risk everything than keep pretending they didn't care. If you could choose between safety and living authentically with someone dangerous, which would you pick? Drop your honest answer. This is where things get really complicated. And if you're loving this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe to Love and Tension for more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. The problem with building something good on a foundation of violence is that eventually the foundation cracks. It happened 6 weeks after Jasmine joined Kim's operation. 6 weeks of successful operations, growing partnership, and nights at the penthouse that turned into something that looked dangerously like domestic happiness. 6 weeks of Jasmine believing maybe they could actually pull this off, be better together, change the world from inside its darkest corners. Then Takeshi brought her a file she wished she'd never seen. "Boss did something," he said, dropping the folder on her desk in the underground headquarters. His scarred face was grim. "Something you need to know about before you go any deeper with him." Jasmine opened the file. Inside, surveillance photos, financial records, police reports. Her stomach dropped as she processed what she was seeing.
2 months ago, while Jasmine was still in Chicago, Kim had ordered the execution of 7 men. Not rivals, not threats to his operation. 7 accountants who'd embezzled money from a company he protected. They'd stolen from the wrong people, yes, but the punishment was execution. Public execution. Bodies left in the streets as warnings. This was before I met him, Jasmine said slowly. 2 weeks before you walked into the Dragon's Eye. This is who he is, Jasmine. This is what he does when you're not there to be his conscience. Takeshi's voice was flat. You asked me to help keep him human, so I'm showing you what happens when he forgets. Why are you showing me this now? Because yesterday he got similar intel on a group stealing from our southern operations. 6 people, accountants again, and he's planning the same response. Public execution, bodies as warnings, maximum fear. Takeshi leaned forward. You've got maybe 12 hours to talk him out of it before those people die. So I'm asking, are you really his conscience, or just someone he listens to when it's convenient? Jasmine's hands shook as she held the file. She'd known Kim was capable of violence. She'd seen it, benefited from it, used it to destroy Rossi. But this was different. This was calculated cruelty. This was using murder as marketing. This was the monster she'd been pretending wasn't real. Where is he? She asked quietly. Meeting with the execution team, planning the operation. You've got an hour, maybe less. Jasmine stood, grabbed her jacket, and headed for the door. Takeshi caught her arm. If you can't stop him, you need to leave, for real. This world will corrupt you completely if you stay. His voice carried warning. I've seen it happen to everyone who tries to change Kim. They either break him or he breaks them. There's no middle ground. Then I guess we'll find out which one I am. Jasmine pulled free and walked out. She found Kim in the war room, a space underground where he planned operations that required absolute secrecy. 6 men surrounded a table covered in maps and photos. The targets? 6 ordinary-looking people who'd made the mistake of stealing from Kim Woo-hyun. Jasmine, Kim looked up, surprise flickering across his features. This is a closed meeting. Then open it. She walked straight to the table, looked at the photos. Young faces. Probably desperate. Probably making terrible choices for understandable reasons. We need to talk, now, alone. Kim's jaw tightened. We're in the middle of, I said now. Jasmine's voice cut like glass. Unless you want me to say what I need to say in front of your execution squad. Silence. Every man in the room looked at Kim, waiting for his response. Nobody talked to the boss like that. Nobody made demands. Kim stood slowly. Out. All of you. They filed out without question. In 30 seconds, Jasmine and Kim were alone in the war room, surrounded by photos of people he planned to kill. You want to explain why you just interrupted a critical planning session? Kim's voice was cold. The Mafia boss, not the man who'd held her last night. I want you to explain why you're planning to murder 6 people for stealing money. Jasmine gestured to the photos. These aren't rivals, aren't threats. They're accountants who made bad choices, and you're planning public executions to send messages. They stole from our southern operation. $2 million. That theft affects hundreds of people who depend on our protection, our services, our reliability. Kim's voice was flat, factual. We can't let that go unpunished. Punished? Fine. Arrested. Prosecuted. Bankrupted. Made examples of in ways that don't involve leaving bodies in streets. Jasmine's voice rose. But execution? Public murder? That's not justice. That's terrorism. That's business. Kim's expression didn't change. In this world, weakness gets exploited. If I let 6 accountants steal $2 million and walk away, everyone else will try the same thing. Fear maintains order. Fear keeps people alive. Fear makes you into the monster everyone thinks you are. Jasmine slammed her hand on the table. You told me you wanted to be better. You told me you wanted to deserve being loved. You told me your grandmother would be proud of what you're building. You think murdering 6 people makes any of that true? My grandmother understood survival. She worked herself to death because she had no power, no protection, no way to fight back when the world crushed her. Kim's voice turned to ice. I built this empire so people like her would have someone powerful enough to protect them. And that protection requires fear, requires violence, requires making examples of people who threaten what we've built. No, Jasmine's voice broke. It requires you becoming exactly what you fought against. You're using the same justifications every tyrant uses, that violence is necessary, that fear keeps people safe, that the ends justify the means. But they don't, Kim. They never do. The moment you believe that, you've lost everything that makes you different from the people you kill. Then what would you have me do? Kim's hands spread wide. Let them go? Send a message that stealing from us has no consequences? Watch as every operation we've built falls apart because people think we're too weak to defend ourselves? Make the consequences meaningful without being lethal. Bankrupt them. Expose their crimes to legitimate authorities. Force them to work off the debt. Hell, break a few bones if you have to. I'm not naive enough to think this world runs on kindness, but don't murder them. Don't leave bodies in streets like some medieval warlord. Don't become the monster that makes people fear you more than respect you. Kim stared at her, and stared, and stared. You think I can afford to show mercy? I think you can't afford not to. Jasmine stepped closer. Every execution makes you more feared and less human. Every body you leave in the street adds weight to the darkness you carry. Eventually, that weight crushes everything good in you, and I refuse to stand beside a man who's given up on being better. So that's it? You're threatening to leave if I don't handle this your way? I'm reminding you why we're partners, because I keep you human and you keep me grounded in reality. This is me keeping you human, Kim. This is me telling you that the man I'm falling for wouldn't murder 6 people to prove a point. Her voice softened. Please, find another way. The war room was silent except for their breathing. Kim's hands clenched into fists, then slowly relaxed. When he finally spoke, his voice carried exhaustion. 2 weeks before you walked into my life, I killed 7 people for the same crime, left their bodies as warnings, felt nothing, did it because it was efficient, because it worked, because I'd forgotten there might be better ways.
He looked at the photos on the table. But you're right. That wasn't being human. That was being the monster everyone already thinks I am. So what are you going to do? Jasmine asked quietly. Kim studied the photos for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call. Takeshi, cancel the execution. We're handling this differently. He listened to whatever response came through. I don't care what we usually do. Bring me alternatives. Bankruptcy, debt repayment, legal consequences. Anything that doesn't involve bodies. Another pause. Because my partner just reminded me I'm supposed to be better than this. Now find me better options. He ended the call, looked at Jasmine. Satisfied? Getting there? She moved around the table, stood in front of him. Why did you really plan the execution, Kim? Truth, because it's what I know. Violence is comfortable, familiar, guaranteed to work. Mercy is risky, complicated, could make us look weak. He met her eyes. But mostly because I was scared. Of what? Of losing you. Of caring about someone so much that it changes how I operate. Of becoming soft in a world that punishes softness. His voice dropped to something raw. I've spent 15 years being feared, being alone, being certain I didn't need anyone. Then you showed up and made me want things I thought were impossible, made me hope I could be better, and that hope is terrifying, Jasmine, because if I'm better and I still lose you, then what was the point? Jasmine's chest tightened. So you decided to prove you were still the monster. I decided to remind myself why I don't get to be better, why hoping is dangerous, why caring about you is the biggest risk I've ever taken. Kim's hands found hers. But you're right.
I can't become what I'm fighting against. Can't build something good on foundations of cruelty. Can't deserve you if I'm executing people to prove a point. You never deserved me based on violence. Jasmine squeezed his hands. You deserved me because you were trying, because you followed rules when nobody forced you to, because you protected people who couldn't protect themselves. The moment you stop trying, stop following rules, stop protecting instead of just punishing, that's when you lose me. Not because you showed mercy, because you gave up on being human. Kim pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. You're going to make this so much harder. Good. Easy doesn't change anything. Hard is where transformation happens. They stood there, in the war room, surrounded by photos of people who wouldn't die today, holding each other like life rafts in stormy seas. Eventually, Takeshi returned with alternative plans, prosecution through legitimate channels, debt repayment structured over 5 years, public exposure that would destroy the thieves' reputations without ending their lives. Kim approved all of it, made calls implementing the new approach, watched his operation adapt from terrorism to something that looked almost like justice. And through it all, Jasmine stood beside him, conscience and partner, terrified she was falling in love with a man who could still destroy her. Later, back at the penthouse, Kim poured them both whiskey. I'm going to relapse, he said quietly. There will be times when violence is the only option, when mercy gets people killed, when I have to choose between being human and keeping us alive, and I'll probably choose violence. I know, Jasmine accepted the glass, and I'll probably leave when you do, walk away because I can't stomach what you've become. So why are we doing this? Why pretend we can work when we both know I'll eventually become something you can't accept? Because maybe you won't. Maybe having someone who gives a damn is enough to keep you trying. Maybe love is stronger than violence. She smiled sadly. Or maybe we're both delusional and this ends in tragedy. But I'd rather try and fail than never try at all. Kim touched his glass to hers. To trying and probably failing, to loving a monster and hoping he stays human. Jasmine drank, felt the burn, welcomed it. They sat in silence as Seoul glittered below them, two people building something impossible on foundations that cracked a little more every day. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't even a good ending, but it was real, and maybe real was enough. 6 months after Jasmine walked into the Dragon's Eye, Kim Woo-yoon's empire had transformed. Still criminal, still violent when necessary, but different, better, focused more on protection and less on punishment, building instead of just destroying. Jasmine stood in the underground headquarters, reviewing reports from operations across Seoul. The 15 million they'd recovered from Rossi had turned into 30 million in legitimate investments. The trafficking rings they'd dismantled had saved 43 people. The corrupt officials they'd exposed had actually faced consequences. It wasn't perfect. Kim still made choices that kept her up at night, still used violence when she wished he'd find better ways, still carried darkness that no amount of her light could fully eliminate. But he was trying. That had to mean something. Penny for your thoughts? Kim's voice came from behind her. Thinking about the day I walked into your club asking for your heavy thing. Jasmine turned, smiled. Feels like a lifetime ago. Feels like yesterday. Kim wrapped his arms around her waist. You've changed everything, you know. This operation, this city, me. We changed each other. Jasmine leaned back against him. I'm not the woman I was 6 months ago either. Better or worse? Different. Stronger. More myself. She turned in his arms. Still not sure if that's good or bad. It's real. That's what matters. They stood there surrounded by evidence of everything they'd built. Financial records of legitimate businesses, case files on human trafficking rings they'd destroyed, reports from neighborhoods their protection actually protected. It was complicated, messy, built on compromises that neither of them felt entirely comfortable with, but it was theirs.
Takeshi brought me something yesterday, Jasmine said eventually. Another file, another situation where execution might be justified. Kim went still. And I told him to bring me alternatives first, that we try every other option before we consider violence. She met his eyes. But I also told him that if violence is truly the only way, if choosing mercy gets innocent people killed, then I won't stop you. I'll hate it. Might take days before I can look at you without seeing blood, but I won't stop you. That's new. Kim's voice carried surprise. 6 months ago, you would have fought me on that. 6 months ago, I thought the world was simple. Good people versus bad people. Right choices versus wrong choices. But it's not simple, Kim. It's complicated and messy, and sometimes the only choices are between bad and worse. Jasmine's voice hardened. So I'm learning to live in that complexity, to accept that sometimes violence is necessary without accepting that it's good, to stay human while doing inhuman things. That's called corruption. Or evolution. Depends on whether we're becoming worse or just becoming realistic. She smiled sadly. Ask me in 5 years which one it was. Kim kissed her forehead. 5 years? You're planning to stick around that long? Maybe, if you keep trying to be better, if you don't cross lines I can't uncross, if we keep building something that matters more than just power and profit. Those are big ifs. They're the only ifs that matter. Jasmine pulled away, returned to studying the reports. Speaking of which, the Huang family reached out. They want to meet, discuss potential alliance. The Huangs are old school, traditional. They don't ally with people like us. People like us? You mean a black woman and a Korean man trying to build something better in the middle of a criminal empire? Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Yeah, we're not exactly conventional. That's not what I meant. I know, but it's what they'll think. She turned back to him. Question is, do we care? Kim studied her for a long moment. No, we don't. If the Huangs want an alliance, they accept us as we are, or they don't get one. I'm done pretending to be something I'm not to make other criminals comfortable. Good answer, Jasmine smiled. Let's go make them an offer they can't refuse. They left the headquarters together, partners in every sense that mattered. Not perfect, not clean, not even entirely good by most definitions, but trying, building, surviving in a world designed to destroy people like them. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Jasmine stood by the windows looking out at Seoul. Kim joined her, handed her a glass of wine. What are you thinking about? He asked. Heavy things. She sipped the wine. About how 6 months ago I asked for your heavy thing, your power, your reach, your ability to make things happen, and how I got so much more than that. What did you get? Partnership. Purpose. Someone who makes me want to be better even when better is complicated. Someone who's willing to try being human even when being monstrous would be easier. Jasmine looked at him. The heavy thing I wanted was your power. The heavy thing I got was responsibility. For you, for this empire, for every choice we make together. That's heavier than any weapon or reputation could ever be. Regret it? Kim asked quietly. Every day, Jasmine smiled, and I'd choose it again every time. They stood there as the city glittered below them, two people carrying heavy things together, building something impossible, one compromise at a time. It wasn't the fairy tale ending Jasmine had imagined 6 months ago. Wasn't even clear if it was an ending at all. Might just be another beginning, another chapter in the story that would never truly resolve. But it was real, complicated, messy, beautiful in its imperfection, and maybe that was enough. Here's what I need from you right now. This story doesn't have easy answers. Jasmine chose partnership with a monster over safety with good people. Kim chose trying to be human over accepting what he is. Neither of them knows if they made the right choice, and maybe that's the point. Drop a comment telling me, would you choose love with someone dangerous or safety with someone boring? Are Jasmine and Kim building something real or just justifying corruption? And most importantly, do you think people like Kim can actually change, or is Jasmine deluding herself? If this story made you feel something, anything, hit that like button and subscribe to Love and Tension. More stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about love, power, and the space between good and evil coming soon. The heavy thing isn't Kim's power. It's the weight of choosing between who we are and who we wish we could be. And sometimes that weight is too heavy to carry alone. The end.